This week on LTC News, how clean is the Merrimack?
The treatment plant's at capacity, so we can't take and treat anymore.
Connecting communities with a trail.
Each town has selected different portions of their natural areas to make into the trail.
Locals respond to the Caravan.
These people are looking for legal process, looking for asylum.
Stay with us. Welcome to LTC News. I'm your news anchor, Alanna Flood. There are many Central American immigrants in the Merrimack Valley, and they are very concerned about the fate of the large caravan of asylum seekers from Central America slowly making its way from Honduras to the U.S. border. Nancy Pena, a Lowell resident from Guatemala and an LTC member producer of the program Colores Latinos, spoke with a journalist colleague from Guatemala via Skype who has been traveling with the caravan. Nancy tells us what she learned.
Jaime Montenegro, who is a journalist, he actually reported for Emisoras Unidas, one of the biggest radio in Guatemala. He explains to me that the caravan that started in Honduras on October 13 started with 1,000 people. Coming to United States, that was the goal. However, during that time, more people were interested in to come to United States. And finally, they crossed Guatemala with some forces and also Mexico. And I think that he estimates right now that there is around 8,000 people. Some people are fainting, some people are really sick, especially kids are getting tired. They are walking hours without food, without water. Other people, I do understand them from Guatemala, were able to help them to provide some food. The same in Mexico, but it still is not safe. It looks illegal the way we are reading in the news, but these people are looking for legal process, looking for asylum. So the way that works is like you presenting yourself at the border with the immigration, and you present the case about why you are escaping from Honduras. So that's a legal process. I asked Jaime why people are taking this challenge, especially so dramatic and drastic, because the people are traveling just with a backpack, and especially women, pregnant women and kids. And he gave it to me 3 reasons. So the reasons are the violence in Honduras, and also the insecurity. A lot of people, criminal organizations are taking power in the city and killing people everywhere. And also there is no jobs. So people are looking for a better life, not just in the United States. He also told me that people are thinking to stay in Mexico. And I understand that the new president of Mexico, Manuel Obrador, he stated that after December 1st, when he finally takes place in Mexico, he will be able to offer jobs to those immigrants. Mexico right now is trying to stop the caravan to cross the border because, as you know, our administration here in the United States, the president is being very strict, and he has, he has some plans. He has his own agenda. He was very clear saying that he doesn't want these people in the United States. And also, he says that he will send the military forces to the border of the United States. So I asked Jaime, if these people is aware of this, they says, well, we are not criminals. We are looking for asylum. And some people says, I prefer to die in the border than in Honduras. So that was very, some sad answers, because they are not thinking to go back to Honduras. It doesn't matter what.
As the Caravan makes its way through Mexico, it's become quite partisan in the U.S., and there's a lot of uncertainty on both sides of the border. In 1929, the Charles Eliot family of Boston proposed creating a series of green spaces in the towns surrounding Boston as the sprawling metropolis expanded westward. The goal was to preserve and protect open spaces from commercial and residential development. In the 1930s, the man known as the father of the Appalachian Trail developed the plan further.
A man named Benton MacKaye. Most people know Benton MacKaye for the Appalachian Trail, which is over 3,000 miles. Very few people know that Benton MacKaye actually worked on the Bay Circuit Trail during the 30s and 40s.
Development outpaced conservation in the ensuing decades, and the dream of a Bay Circuit Trail floundered. A swell of renewed interest in the 1980s led to the formation of the Bay Circuit Alliance.
We looked at a lot of maps, we looked at a lot of concepts and possible land acquisition opportunities, and were urged again to make sure that the Bay Circuit concept was included in open space planning in all the Bay Circuit communities.
It's really an effort for people to get trails in their community to connect, to build this one big outer emerald necklace.
Today, the modern history is such that there's over 200 miles of walking trail, biking, skiing in some places, snowshoeing.
Each town has selected different portions of their natural areas to make into the trail.
The northern terminus of the trail is at Plum Island. From there, it heads southwest in a wide arc around Boston, with its southern terminus in the Kingston Bay, Duxbury area. Along the way, it meanders through cities and towns, connecting parks, state lands, and open spaces.
The Bay Circuit Trail really is an experience of going through state forests, through beautiful, pristine, wildernessy areas, but also through suburban neighborhoods, along sometimes city roads through Lowell.
It certainly is an urban community, but I think that the trail has really highlighted some of the city's most beautiful natural resources. Really been able to capitalize on river views that a lot of people don't see, but we're also providing an opportunity for alternative recreation. We're getting vehicle miles off the road, making connections with trails that didn't exist before.
Lowell's segment of the trail passes through historic urban areas and beautiful riverbanks, but it'll be a few more years before all the pieces are connected.
The Bay Circuit Trail starts where the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail comes into the city of Lowell. We're working to extend that under the Lowell Connector, and then that will connect through the city cemeteries to the Concord River Greenway. 3 sections of the Concord River Greenway are done. There are 2 other sections that will start next year in 2019. So the Concord River Greenway, as a part of the Bay Circuit Trail, has really opened up sections of the river that were not accessible before in some of the city's densest neighborhoods, and we provided access to open space that people in those neighborhoods didn't have or had to travel to get to.
The trails are really our gateway back to nature. For me, the Bay Circuit Trail was really a way to shine a spotlight on our earth and what we're doing to care for our earth and how we're trying to preserve the green places.
For me, what's not emphasized enough is the mental health benefits of getting outside every day or every week or as often as you can.
Creating these trail opportunities improves the environment in the city, promotes access to people, we're improving air quality, and also there's a whole mental health factor and just the ability for people to come out and have peace of mind and get to enjoy a bit of nature.
The story came full circle in 2012 when the Appalachian Mountain Club took over stewardship of the Bay Circuit Trail. The Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust often leads walks along local sections of the trail. Check their site for a schedule of events. The amount of raw sewage being put in the Merrimack River by the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility is up this year, 60 million gallons more than last. This has environmentalists concerned about the ill effects it could have on people and pets, especially dogs. Those with the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility are hoping that this recent attention will help them secure the funds they need to make improvements to the plant.
The overflow is just a combination of rainwater and storage that the treatment plant can't take. The treatment plant's at capacity, so we can't take and treat anymore. So we're treating the maximum amount, and the rest we discharge into the river. It's been a wetter year this year, and we've had more rainfall. Last year, our discharges are around 120 million. Obviously, we're on 160, 70 million this year.
And these days we're having more rain, largely due to a changing climate. I mean, if you look at the trends both over the last 100 years and the projected trends over the next 50, it's going to get rainier and rainier in New England, and particularly in this part of New England.
Most of the treatment plants along the river are experiencing the same thing, slight increase in discharge because of the additional wet weather.
Now, how come the plants aren't designed to handle more?
When they were originally built, they were actually designed to do these overflows, and they were built with 75% federal dollars, 15% state dollars, and 10% local. So they were designed with federal dollars to do this, but over the years, environmental regulations have changed, and it's no longer good for the river to discharge the CSOs.
There's also the issue of personal contact with the river. Dogs go in the river, owners touch their dogs. The dogs, in some cases, may develop health problems because of their connection with sewage. They don't really understand that the sewage can stay in the river after a combined sewer overflow for 48 to 72 hours. Think about a summer day. You have a big rainstorm in the summer, cloud burst, you have big combined sewer overflows in the tens of millions of gallons. Then the sun comes out and people say, oh great, I'm going to go out paddleboarding. Well, that's when the problem begins. We need to get the word out that the river, especially downstream from these large sewage treatment plants, is probably not safe for bodily contact for at least 2 days.
The Merrimack River is a source of drinking water for residents. How does this sewage increase in the river affect the drinking water quality?
It really doesn't, because the treatment plants are designed to treat the water to make it safe for public consumption. I'm a Lowell resident. I work at the water plant and I drink the water. It is safe. It doesn't really affect anything in the treatment process. The drinking water plants can handle it. It's not an issue.
What can a concerned person do if they're interested in seeing more federal money go towards this problem?
Join an advocacy group. There's a lot of, like the Merrimack River Watershed Council, and also contact the congressmen, the senators, and advocate for federal funding and federal dollars to help the cities like Lowell and Lawrence and Haverhill deal with the CSO issues, because, like I said before, it's unaffordable, and we really need to get federal dollars to tackle this problem.
They can press for reform, and one of the key reforms that we feel needs to happen, it almost happened this year, we hope it will happen next, is to get legislation passed in Massachusetts that gives people in the state real-time notice that combined sewer overflows, sewage overflows are happening.
Have you noticed the leaves have dropped from the trees and your yard is probably filled with them? In our next segment, city recycling expert Gunther Willenstein shows us the proper, sustainable way to dispose of fall yard waste.
Couple of components that are important for yard waste. Primary one is the material that we put into, and we'll talk about that. And the second one is about the containers. I went to a local hardware store and I bought a new 32-gallon barrel with a lid because my old one isn't functional anymore. One of the important components is a functional, tight-fitting lid, because we don't want to collect rainwater. It's really bad with the grass that sits in and festers in the sun, and it does add weight, so the trucks fill up a whole lot faster. And you can pick up your sticker at the health department, at City Hall, the senior center, and even DPW. And with the new sticker, you're going to put it on the front, so it identifies this barrel different from your red one, trash, and the green one, recycling. This one will be identified as yard waste for proper set out of compostable material. I do recommend that you put in a couple of holes. I have a 1/4-inch drill bit, 3 or 4, just enough to let the moisture weep out so it's not in standing water. Another acceptable set-out container is the paper lawn and leaf bag. You'll find those at the local hardware stores and the supermarket. Keep in mind that the material that you put into the yard waste barrel goes to a local composting facility, so we don't accept logs or rocks or dirt or sod, boulders, construction wood like fencing, metal pieces. This is just organic, biodegradable material. So it's just loose, compostable. It's the stuff that you can rake. It's grass if you're still mowing, and then you put the lid on it and this material is ready to be taken out. Remember, seasonal decorations like corn stalks and pumpkins are absolutely acceptable, and that's the preferred method for disposal. You want to make sure that your corn stalks are 3 feet. That's the limit of material in yard waste, so you might have to cut them in half. For the pumpkins, make sure you take out any batteries and any candles, any lighting, any cords you want to disconnect. Put those in your yard waste. Remember, yard waste is appropriate for curbside customers only, so if you have city trash and city recycling, then you participate in curbside collection. So one other component that's important about yard waste set out, not only the material in the container, many of the don'ts that I've mentioned, but also the container weight. This is one of the only curbside items that they pick up manually. It's not an automated truck, so it is very, very important that these containers, the bags and the barrels, not exceed 35 pounds. So this 32-gallon container is perfect. Make sure it's not too heavy. If you can pick it up and carry it to the curb, then it should be perfectly fine. Yard waste extends through the second collection, the second week of December this year. So your best way to follow the calendar is visit lowellrecycle.org. Right on the front page is curbside schedule. Put in your address and you'll have everything customized to your neighborhood collection route. Otherwise, get our free app. Lowell Recycle is the free app on both the Droid and the iPhone. Again, put in your address and you can scroll through the rest of the 2018 curbside calendar.
I just downloaded the app and I'm ready to tackle the yard. In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott sits down with Jim Wilde, Executive Director of the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Scott, the Enterprise Editor at The Sun, and welcome to the latest edition of Sunspot. We're going to veer off course a little bit this week. We do not have a politician on stage with us tonight. We do not have someone who's trying to seek re-election or get elected or anything like that. We're going to another very important facet of Lowell and what makes things in Lowell tick, and that's the nonprofit community. And with me tonight is Jim Wilde, who is the Executive Director of the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership. Jim, thanks for coming in.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
On short notice, I saw you at the debate this week, and I said, geez, I got to get someone. Jim, can you come on?
I'll be happy.
Over the year, I've been at the Sun for a long time, and over the years I've developed an affinity for many of the nonprofits because I realize the important role that they play in Lowell. It's not just the Lowell city government, it's not just the Lowell school department. The nonprofits, I think, really make this city tick, and yours is one of them. And I've often thought about the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership as what a benevolent thing to do to try to help people who couldn't otherwise afford housing get into a home. So maybe you could start with just a little bit. How did the housing partnership start? I know you've been there for 26 years. Mm-hmm. Its existence is 32 years, right? How did it get its start? And then we'll move on a little bit.
It's got an interesting origin. It was actually started by a group called the Ethnic Covenant, which was a group of people who they formed several things. They They formed the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership. They were influential in getting the House of Hope going. Mm-hmm. They were influential in getting CBA going. Mm-hmm. They were the force behind having housing court created. Mm-hmm. And so and if you look at 30 years later, all the organizations that they started are all thriving, mm-hmm. and then they went out of business.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting model.
Who's the big guy or the big woman behind the Ethnic Covenant?
Well, one of the key people was Seamus Finn, who was an oblate. Yeah. And he's in Washington.
From St. Patrick's, right?
No, he was Sacred Heart.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And he's been in Washington, D.C. for many years now, mm-hmm. and we're in touch with him. Mm-hmm. Mary Noon mm-hmm. was mm-hmm. Rosemary's mother. Was a big. Mm-hmm. She was a long-serving board member on our board.
So in 32 years, how many people has the housing partnership placed in single-family owner-occupied homes?
Well, we've been doing the homebuyer training classes since mm-hmm. For the 26 years. During that time, we've had over 17,000 families go through the classes.
Okay, and then you can extrapolate from that. How many actually went into homes?
About 30% generally buy within a year, mm-hmm. and about 40% generally buy within 2 years. Mm-hmm. So we've had probably well over 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 people that have purchased so far.
Now, are they limited to Lowell, or
they can buy anywhere?
Anywhere, yeah. But is there a certain region that they usually buy in? Is it Lowell and just the 5 contiguous communities?
It's, I would say probably about 70% buy in Lowell, but they can buy anywhere, but the Lowell is particularly attractive to a lot of our clients because we have the down payment assistance programs here.
Now, is it safe to say that most of the clients of the partnership are ethnic?
We look really carefully at the demographics of our clients, and it's like holding up a mirror to the city of Lowell.
Okay, there you go. That's a good way to put it.
It really is reflective of the community. We do the classes in English, Spanish, and Khmer. We've also done them periodically in Arabic and in Burmese. But we do them regularly in Spanish, English, and Khmer. And our demographics are identical to the city of Lowell.
So what is the most common theme among all the families that typically go through a class? What is the one factor that you see in all these different families, regardless of their country of origin?
The desire to have a safe home that they can call their own. It's such an amazingly transformative thing in people's lives.
How long does an average class usually take?
Each course is 10 hours, and we do them over 4 evenings or 2 Saturdays.
And then what do you stress in those classes?
Well, we bring in bankers, attorneys, home inspectors, real estate brokers. We cover all of the different components of the typical parts of the process of buying a house.
And
I think the single most important thing we do is we educate people about the process and also the importance of putting together the best team.
I know that you're involved in many other causes here in the city, many of the other nonprofits. I've known you for years. The professionals that you rely on to come in and give those classes, are they some of the well-known bankers and realtors that we see in some of the larger institutions?
Yeah, we work with all the local banks and some mortgage companies and some larger banks. We probably have about 100 different people who help volunteer their time and talents.
That was my next question. It's volunteer, right?
Yeah, all the professionals who come in to help teach the classes volunteer.
So that you're really using the public-private partnership that the city has become so well known for.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful synergy between all the different groups, and everybody benefits.
We were talking off air a little bit about the housing meltdown of 2008. And one thing that I've often wondered about the housing partnership is, I know you're careful in not trying to put someone into a home that can't afford it. Tell me and tell our viewers how you take, what assurances you take. You know, you give them the course, but then I'm sure there's some ushering after that as they go through the process. So how do you ensure that someone who really wants that home, but if they just can't quite afford it, you have to say, hey, you know, maybe back off for a month or 2 or a year?
Well, what we do is in the classes we really educate them about their options and the importance of making good choices. And then one of the nice things about the classes, when the class is finished and the class is done in a group setting, people can come in and meet with our home buyer counselor, and he meets with people for usually about 2 hours each. Individually, we go over their credit report, we look at their work history.
Crunch the numbers?
We crunch all their numbers, we look at all of their finances, all of their debts. And then we call it a home readiness or home purchase readiness. If they have issues, many times there are credit issues or saving for a down payment or learning how to budget better or whatever, we work with them to come up with a plan. And sometimes it's a 6-month plan, sometimes it's a 5-year plan. Sometimes they're ready right away. If they're ready right away, we'll let them know what their best mortgage options are. And like whether it's the mass housing loans or the MHP loans or whatever type of mortgage product, and then we'll refer various lenders that carry those products.
Is there one local bank that you work with more frequently than others, or are they all in the mix?
They're really all in the mix. We work with all of the local banks. They're all great, but everybody's different. The important thing for a first-time home buyer is to make sure that they really look at all of their options, because all the different lenders carry different products. And so if somebody is an ideal candidate for an MHP1 loan, for example, which is one of the...
I don't know what that is.
That's the Mass Housing Partnerships 1 program. It's called. It's probably one of the best mortgage programs in the state. Affordable, designed for first-time home buyers. Lower interest rates, no private mortgage insurance, so it's a really attractive product. So if somebody's eligible for that program, we encourage them to try to find a lender that carries that product. Other people may be better for an FHA loan or a mass housing loan. And so they have to not only shop by the mortgage product, they have to shop by the lender to see who carries those products.
I see. Now, tell me about those statistics that you mentioned off air about folks that go through the course and actually buy the home and how they stay solvent and they stay in that home. Tell me about that study.
Okay,
Tell
I'm
viewers
really,
about that
really
study. That's
pleased about
important.
this. Yeah, this is a great statistic, and it's something we've been working on being able to quantify for a long time. We've always been really diligent about keeping good records. We've had lots of UMass interns who have worked in the office over the year that help us track down home buyers and keep records. So we were able to, a graduate student from UMass Lowell was able to spend a whole semester analyzing all of our data, and he compared of our graduates and home buyers, and then was able to pull all of those, connecting it with the lowelldeeds.com, the Registry of Deeds database, and he was able to determine that at a minimum, 1 out of every 14 homes purchased in Lowell since the year 2000 was purchased by a graduate of our classes. And then further from that, he looked at the overall default rate for all mortgages in the city of Lowell during that time period, through the crisis of 2008 particularly, was 5.6%. So 5.6% of the houses, the mortgages in Lowell, were in default at some point.
Since 2000?
Yep.
Okay.
And
Pardon me.
and then he further looked at of those, for the people who went through our classes and purchased homes, the default rate there was 1.6%, which was a fraction of the overall population. So it's kind of an untold story, but just by having homebuyer education and working with the right people, knowing the red flags, knowing making good choices, not getting in over your head, saved so many people from foreclosure or really bad outcomes.
When was that study done?
2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Has that been updated since? Because I'm thinking it could be a story for the Sun.
It hasn't been updated since, and it's going to be hard to pull that off because it all relied on a particular student from UMass who was a graduate student who did this as part of his dissertation.
Oh, right.
And but we have the data. So, but if we come across somebody else that can come in and do that kind of level of analysis for us, we'd love to.
You mentioned there a red flag. What is a typical red flag that you or one of your colleagues?
Oh, I mean, well, going back to the crisis 10 years ago, I mean, it was unbelievable.
But even today, though, if you see someone going through the class and they might have the, I'm sorry to interrupt, but they might have the most excitement as ever. We only have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
But you just know that they're not ready. What do you see, and then how do you convey that?
I think we see a lot of people, buying a house is such a big deal, and it's so emotional, and people stop thinking logically and they don't look at mortgages as a product. They look at it as money that they need to buy the house with. So it doesn't matter how it comes to them. So if someone's willing to give it to them, they're just all excited, but they don't realize that had they shopped around and selected a different mortgage, it could cost them $200 or $300 a month less.
A different product, hence the
different product.
Yeah.
And so it's frustrating for us because we've been doing it for so long that we're really good at calming people down and helping them think through the implications of their decisions.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry, only because we have 1 minute left.
All right.
You've been there for almost 30 years, right?
And if you round up.
I'm rounding up. I tend to do that when I write reports. So, recite one story of someone who went through the class and purchased a home that has just been seared in your memory as one of the most positive experiences in your professional career. What would that be?
Gosh, there's probably about 10 of them that just bring tears to your eyes. But one of them is a woman who grew up in the Julian Steel housing complex, Shaughnessy Terrace, and now owns a home at River's Edge.
Okay, so she was part of that development.
She was part of that development.
The redevelopment.
Lived there, raised her kids there, and then was able to buy a house with down payment assistance and live in the same place.
Right. Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. So if anyone wants to learn more about the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership, they can do that by
mvhp.org or just call us up
at
978-459-8490.
Jim, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Keep up the good
Appreciate it.
work.
That's it for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 8 and 99, online at ltc.org, on Roku at LTC Lowell, or get the link on Facebook. I'm Alanna Flood. Thanks for joining us.